Hello and welcome to another episode of Car Talk. Now this time, since it's December and it's cold pretty much everywhere, not so cold here right now, but you know where I'm at, it fluctuates so crazy that it's ridiculous. But most people, you know, it's time to warm up your cars. And let's be honest, it'd go for summertime too. And I talk about things I've seen and heard, so go with that. Now I've seen people sit there and in the winter and the summertime, start their vehicles, walk away, and wait till they fully reach operating temperature to drive off. That's a waste of time and gas. No point in doing that. And if your injectors are leaking or your carburetor's running a little rich or whatever, you know, for whatever reason, then it's not a good idea to do that either. So in the summertime, usually between either carburetor or fuel injection, I let the high idle drop and give it like 10-15 seconds after that, maybe 30, you know, if I'm distracted, you know, with the radio or whatever, then drive off. Not a big deal. Sometime with the carburetor, I'll usually start it, wait 30 seconds, no more than a minute, and then take off. Now in the wintertime, well, that's where more people just waste more time and fuel, just push button starting, going out and starting. I want my heater warm, etc., 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 you know, whatever excuses. Well, the vehicles warm up pretty decently driving. So there's that. So eventually you will get heat. Now it may not be as much heat as you want when you first get in, but that's kind of just trying to have the most out of life luxuries and all that stuff you don't really have to have, you know, just what's the tea, you waste gas and be a little bit warmer or be more efficient. So in the wintertime, like with the fuel injections here, the G8 and the Vibe, you know, it does have an high idle and it does last longer in the winter, obviously. It's kind of like an old school choke, just works differently. It's same principle, so to speak. So in the wintertime, I'll let my high idle drop, as always. And then it depends on how cool it is. So we can start with fall to winter. And fall and early spring probably going to be about the same. Like I said, summertime is not very long. Fall, spring, not much longer. High idle drops, maybe 30 seconds to a minute, about the same, you know. Carburetor, and I don't run a choke. And I drive it all year round. And maybe a minute and a half. It depends on how cool it actually is of a fall morning. You know, if it's not below 40, about a minute and a half. Now start getting in the winter, say below 30, things start changing. The colder it is, probably a little bit longer you wait, but on average, you know, 10 to 30 degrees on the no choke here. I'll start it up and 2 to 3 minutes and then drive. Fuel injection over here, about 2 minutes. It's almost about the same, let's be honest. It's about the same. And if it gets really cold, even colder than 10, it's probably still 2 minutes there and probably closer to 4 on that at that point. And that's just giving the honest thing there. Now, my one thing in the wintertime that does change how long I let it set would be, a good example would be if I have to leave and immediately get on the highway. Now in the wintertime, I don't really like to get on the highway / interstate, whatever you want to call it, freeway, turnpike, whatever. I know they all got high speed limits, so to speak, you know, like 60 plus, 65 plus. And as it should be, I'm the kind of person that when I get on the on-ramp, I want to get up to speed as quickly as possible so that I can already merge, be up to speed, and usually it's a lot easier to do that. You know, don't be the person that goes up to the on-ramp 30 miles an hour under, then merge in front of people, slowing them down, expecting the right of way when you have to yield, and then getting up to speed. Now, I usually, if I'm doing that and it's cold in the morning, I like my temperature to be registering on my temp gauge. You know, like a lot of modern gauges don't have numbers, so let's say the first quarter tick, if you would, you know, before I start trying that, you know, get up to speed quick and all that, because I like to be a little bit warmer so the fluids are all moving pretty decently, you know, and all that good stuff. And everything should be working as it is. Same thing here, that'd be probably, you know, on this one, say 120, 130 before I do that. If it's, you know, so I drill it if the on-ramp is, you know, a very short distance where after letting these sit for like 2 minutes, 3 minutes, temp gauge is probably not registering, I would not take it on the on-ramp if it's that close, like it's 30 seconds away and it's not going to move the temp up, and give it a little more time. That's really the only time I'd give it more time. Because in the winter time, I just like the fluids to be a little bit more fluid. That way I know they're everywhere. The block itself is warmed up to where everything's moving a little more freely, less restrictive, etc. Because, you know, cold air on everything is heat cold, you know, that good stuff. So I want to make sure it's efficient. You don't have to sit there and let them get up to temp. That's just, like I said, it's not efficient, it's a waste of time. So, yeah. That's usually how I let my stuff warm up. Especially if I'm driving in town and I'm not ever getting over 35, 40. A couple minutes in the winter time and then go. So there's usually by that time there's enough heat in the engine, even with this chokeless carburetor on this one, that it's not an issue. Never going to be an issue. I guess technically some people have gotten away many times with letting the high idle drop and go. I never recommend just starting and taking off. I'd never recommend that. I like my fluids to be a little bit more everywhere where they should be. I'm sure a lot of people, well, as soon as you started, it goes everywhere. Well, depends how long it set, how cold it was. Depends on how long some of the fluids take to move. I like everything to be properly lubricated whenever I drive, you know. Why take the risk of causing damage when you can avoid it? And you can take that how it is with a grain of salt. That's the way I do it, and I've never had a problem. So I'm sure other people say they've done it either or the other way, never had a problem, but I'm not going to take that risk. Now I'm sure there's some people, well, I have a cam, you know, I modified mine, and well, it don't run right unless I get it almost fully up to temp and then go. Now this might hurt some feelings, but that just means your stuff's not tuned right. Whether it's fuel injection with a, you know, a good LSA on your cam that's got a good lope to it. Let's be honest, if it's not tuned right and you have to wait, you have to wait to warm up all the way to drive it because it stutters and all that, it's not tuned right. Same thing with carburetor. If you have a stock engine, you know, stock old school engine, or a modified old school engine, and man, I gotta wait for it to fully warm up to operating temp before I can drive it, otherwise it don't drive right. Well, there's something wrong with the carburetor, or it's not tuned right, your timing's off, something. Because there's no reason. Now, let's be honest, a drag car is completely different if you're full-blown drag car, but if you're a street car, you know, let's be honest, a drag car is not going to warm up, drive around the block, unless you're doing it for fun. But, you know, something that's street legal, streetable, you know, and this one right here is no choke, and it does fine all year round, you know. Not waiting for it to warm up to temp and going. And the other truck, back when it had a small block 350 and a pretty good LSA cam and a good lope with pretty good amount of lift, same way. I get in it, wait a few minutes, even, you know, 20 degrees outside, and wait 2 or 3 minutes and drive off, not have a problem. So, which kind of leads me to the last thing, and this is one I'm pretty on the heavy believer side of it. I don't care if you stock or modified or whatever, especially in the winter time. I never wide open throttle it until it is up to operating temperature. I don't like to, you know, wide open throttle, pedal to the metal, foot to the floor, give it hell until it is actually up to full operating temperature. And that's what I've always done. And I've seen people do it, start it up and just hit the throttle full off, take off, and I'm like, yeah, that just screams damage to me. But you know what? It's my little car talk. Hope you enjoyed this episode. As always, thanks for watching.